3 years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, I was down on Hatteras Island without Julie. It was quiet. And I wrote a poem a day and then worked on it. So this is a book of 28 days of poetry and some extraordinary photographs that sort of complement them but don't necessarily go along with them. Do I have to keep talking?
You don't know, you're going.
So, you know, what I think I'll do is I'm going to read the introduction, which is called Sailing to Rodanthe, which is where the place is. And it's about this tattoo, which is the island. And 2 days ago was my birthday, and my wife got me another tattoo, but I have to get it. So I'm thinking tattoos these days. Sailing to Rodanthe. My wife glanced at the white bandage on my forearm, listened to my sheepish one-word explanation, and said, "It's going to look like a scar." It is not a scar. It's a 3-inch tattoo of Hatteras Island, this narrow barrier reef with that scythe-like hook right where you'd find the famous lighthouse. So yes, it could be confused with a scar. But to repeat myself, which some say befits my age better than a tattoo, it is definitely not a scar. So what drives a moderately stable father and grandfather of 15 to famous Pat's hats in Woodstock for a young man's ruddy ornament? Well, you should know that I was not Jimmy Buffett drunk on margaritas. And I certainly wasn't goaded on by a band of post adolescent boys with official Yankee jerseys whooping it up while the wives were out of town. I drove up alone and sober after work one Friday afternoon in the spring of 2000. The 15-minute procedure stung less than I imagined, and when the buzzing was done and the excess ink wiped away, the well-decorated Pat herself shook my hand and said my life would never be the same. That still remains to be seen. Of course, I had to learn to withstand with some grace all the smirking that followed me into this psychic-conscious upstate New York college town of New Paltz. Practically everyone who noticed the two seemed to assume it was just another laughable item in the predictable and vain inventory of aging male attempts to recapture some imagined virility. And I'd be an old fool, a tattered coat upon a stick, to tell them they're wrong. But 10 years later, this tattoo is also a talisman, a token, a cave drawing. It's more about where I am going than where I've been. More about who I am than who I'd like to be. I do love my big home in the Shangang Mountains, the wild turkeys, the deer, coyotes, bears in the embraceable backyard, the quirky life on Main Street. But just 64, and finding that life is far more complicated than I ever thought possible at 34, when I actually figured I'd have the whole world right in the palm of my hand by the ripe old age of 44. I am more concerned about where I am than where I've been. Since this tattoo appeared on my forearm, 15, well, I gotta do the math. This is really a school. Well, I'll read what I said, but there's more than this. 12 new people, 10 babies, and 2 new spouses have been added to our already shoulder-crowding dining room table. I still work 60-hour weeks. My weekends are booked seasons in advance, and we have learned the hard lesson recently that one never stops being a parent. So each August, like kids, barely escaping the clutches of the boogeyman in the basement, Patty and I race breathlessly off to this thin strip of sand and shifting shoals. On my Hatteras, where shoes are impediments, and the mosquito is more than just a symbol for Debbie Bell's surf shop. where the old weather-beaten boxy beach cottages define the landscape. I try to live by the motto at Joe Bob's Trading Post: if it's worth buying, we might have it. And with this graven image on the inside wall of my arm, I think I finally might have it. These days, whenever I run out of breath through the cool autumns and the darkening winters, all it takes is a quick turn of the wrist and I'm back for a month on this barrier island. The arc of azure sky and green water, the shifting shores beneath my slowly treading feet. I'm going to read a quick poem in honor of, I don't have a poem about grandchild number 15, but I do have 14. My kids have been reproducing themselves in an alarming pace. And it actually doesn't seem that there's any end in sight. Anyway, this is day 18 of a month on Barrier Island. And it's fairly self-explanatory. Under a low gray sky, sun piercing this humid afternoon, I hear ah in my daughter Clover's breath, as she cradles new life to the edge of the sea, nurses him. Her feet slid into the sand before a squall blows through and everyone picks up something and races back to the cottage. I look around at what they've left behind and bend and take the baby carrier, the umbrella, 2 chairs, a football, a bucket filled with beach toys. But just as my feet shift in the sand, the rain stops. Hazy sun returns, all of them coming back over the dune. I dropped everything in my hands, open the chair and drop the girth of me back down into the sand, knowing I am not who I think I am. Solid and dependable as Schwanga conglomerate. I should try that again. Solid and dependable as Schwanga conglomerate. Here in Rodanthe, I am no mountain of a man, no mountain man, no mountain. Here I am sand, I am shoal, shifting and drifting, the steady, unsteady movement of dune underneath, the choppy surf, and Clover, who was an infant when we first discovered this island, brings her baby to my lap, then races down to the surf, diving head first into a crashing wave, holding her breath, her baby's sweet breath on my arm. Woo! Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for listening so attentively, and nobody fell asleep.